back to the 2025 ADBI Annual Conference on Fostering Regional Cooperation and Integration for Attaining High Income in Asia. We are very lucky to have Professor Jeffrey Sachs to deliver a keynote speech in this conference. Professor Sachs is a professor and a director of the Center for Sustainable Development at Columbia University, and he's also serving as the UN president of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. Professor Sachs will be talking about how economic cooperation and integration could be used as a means to achieve a high-income economy and things that has to do with it. We will have about 40 minutes. Professor Sachs, if you can deliver your speech within 30 minutes and spare about 10 minutes for Q&A, that would be great. Time is yours, Professor Sachs, please.
Thank you, Arief. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be with the ADBI in the annual conference, and I very much appreciate the theme of economic cooperation and integration as a means to achieving a high-income economy, but I want to make it a little bit broader as a means to achieving sustainable development, because what we are after is not only a high-income economy as defined by the national income accounts, but we're after the kind of economy in which people can flourish, which means high income, social inclusion, environmental sustainability, and peaceful cooperation as an end in itself across national borders. And so I think we should aim for economic cooperation and integration as a way to achieve the broad objective of sustainable development, which after all is the global objective adopted by the world's governments in 2015 to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals as part of the broader Agenda 2030, and of course adopted in December 2015 to achieve the climate objectives, specifically the Paris Climate Agreement. So my suggestion is that we need economic cooperation and integration in a fundamental way. And I want to discuss briefly 10 areas for cooperation in Asia. I'm going to focus mostly on East Asia and Southeast Asia. Of course, Asia is much bigger than that, and I'll say a few words about Central Asia and Western Asia towards the end of my remarks. But the basic principles, I think, apply. They go back really 250 years to Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, when he argued correctly that trade expands the scope of the market, and by doing so enables many, many gains from trade, from comparative advantage, from specialization, from inducements to innovation. And so economic integration as a general matter is good at a world scale. And we should remember that even as the US and Europe turn protectionist, open trade, open investment is a spur to global well-being. It's not a zero-sum or negative-sum game, but it's especially true at the regional level because of what the gravity equation tells us about trade, and that is that trade is heavily concentrated within a geography, declining with the square of the distance according to the gravity equation. But I would say, in addition to the fact that trade is very much dependent on space, on physical proximity, so too ecosystems and the transformations to sustainability are very strongly regional in character as well. So the gains from cooperation are economic, both the static and dynamic efficiencies, and they are also ecological because they enable the cooperative joint management of the commons. And the commons in the case of fisheries or wetlands or forests or alpine regions are almost inevitably transnational in nature, so they require transnational cooperation. So I wanted to mention 10 specific themes for Asian cooperation and integration. First is the green transformation. All economies of the world, all regions of the world need to be on an accelerated path to net zero economies. And at the core of that is net zero carbon dioxide and methane. And at the core of that is the transformation of our energy systems from fossil fuel based to renewable energy or nuclear power based. And when one looks systematically at the green transformation of our energy systems, this requires transnational cooperation. The simplest case is renewable energy. It is intermittent, and therefore there are significant benefits in efficiency, in cost reduction, in transnational power grids that share the intermittent energy across national boundaries, and therefore reduce the needs for land within any particular country that may be inappropriate, say for solar or wind power, and also dramatically reduce the need for expensive storage by enabling the trade of green power across an extended geographic grid. So the power system is almost inevitably a regional system if it's going to be efficient, resilient, low cost, all of the features that we want for the energy transformation. In this context, the ASEAN countries, the 11 ASEAN countries, are forging ahead in this year with the plans for strengthening the ASEAN Power Grid, APG, and for building truly a green power system by the year 2050. And I think that this is of central interest for the Asian Development Bank, of course, as a principal financier of this regional grid. So a power system needs a transmission grid. It needs investing, of course, in the power generation, in renewable energy, which in East Asia and Southeast Asia will be of many sorts: wind, solar, hydro, ocean power. There will need to be pump storage. Nuclear power will also, of course, play an important role. And all of this needs design and a regional scale. What is the regional scale for such a system? I think most likely it's actually at the RCEP scale, at the scale of the 15 countries of ASEAN, China, Japan, Korea, Australia, and New Zealand in interconnections, including submarine cable interconnections and connections of ASEAN with China, China with Japan, and Korea. Of course, that requires a lot of trust. It requires reduced tensions across these countries, but it is the economically desirable and efficient system, and it's the one that I think that Asia should aim for. The green transformation also requires smart grids. It requires a shift to electric vehicles, and that means a comprehensive transformation of the automotive sector in East Asia and Southeast Asia, which is an integrated system. And this is going to entail a rapid conversion from internal combustion engine vehicles to not hybrids principally, but to battery electric vehicle systems. And because of the integrated supply chains of East Asia and Southeast Asia, this is also a matter for regional cooperation. Uh, a green energy system also entails transport revolution in rail. So fast rail should interconnect the RCEP region, especially the land-based ASEAN region with China and Korea. Uh, Hydrogen shipping will be absolutely key for the whole Asia Pacific region, because the Asia Pacific region will both be building the ships and will be the major ocean shipping region of the world. And we know that shipping has to uh, convert from diesel to uh, especially battery for uh, inter-island shipping, but to hydrogen of some variety for the ocean shipping. And that requires a regional cooperation in port services, in hydrogen pipelines, and so forth. A lot of industry will also convert, of course, to hydrogen, especially metallurgy, steel making, direct reduction of iron ore and other processes. And this too means that the hydrogen economy is an integrated economy across pipelines, especially. And this means regional cooperation as well. So the first of my 10 points is that the green transformation is inherently a regional effort, not a country by country effort. I think the Paris Agreement obscures this basic fact. Sometimes financing from the World Bank or the ADB or other MDBs obscures this fact because it seems like country by country financing. But we need a regional strategy, a regional plan, and regional financing that enables shared infrastructure, such as uh, pipelines and power transmission. The second area for regional cooperation in the environmental transformation is in land use and food security. A lot of Southeast Asia is shared ecosystems, fisheries, which are being seriously depleted, often by illegal and undocumented fishing, uh, and also major ecosystems, especially the forest regions. At COP30, there are attempts to launch new forest initiatives, including the Southeast Asian forests. And I think that this is also a high priority. But in general, regional cooperation is needed to stop the rampant deforestation, which continues in Borneo and other parts of Southeast Asia. It's driven by regional demand, uh, heavily by Chinese demand for tropical products. And this requires regional cooperation for sustainability of the rainforests. A third area for regional cooperation, in my view, is in higher education, which is key to a high-income economy. Of course, there are superb institutions of higher education across Asia, and Asia is the region of the fastest rise of top 100 universities. But I would urge a lot more cooperation among these universities of joint research programs, student exchanges, faculty exchanges, all made possible by online digital teaching, which can facilitate tremendously cooperation. I mention the education system because of the fourth point, which is that in this age of tremendous innovation and disruption, we don't need only national level innovation ecosystems, but regional uh, innovation ecosystems. It's notable that Asia is home to the most dynamic innovation clusters in the world. Uh, According to WIPO 2025 innovation cluster rankings, the number one innovation cluster in the world today is the Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Guangzhou cluster. Number two is Tokyo, Yokohama. Silicon Valley ranks number three, Beijing number four, and Seoul number five. Very impressive. And if you go down the list of the top 100 clusters, of course, East Asia, especially Northeast Asia, is the world's powerhouse in technology clusters. But this to me suggests a lot of cooperation possible across these innovation clusters, not only competition across these clusters. The fifth point, if I put land use two, education systems three, innovation systems four, a fifth area for regulation is, of course, artificial intelligence itself. We need standards, uh, privacy protection, standards for data use, for security, cybersecurity, reliability, and so on. We don't need a Cold War in AI. We need cooperation. And I would suggest that the Asian economies not wait for the United Nations or the United States or anyone else in coming up with AI regulations and ways for data centers across the region to interact safely with cybersecurity and with shared standards. This is, of course, a big challenge. It's a geopolitical challenge as well as a technological challenge, but it is one that is right now extremely important. The sixth area that I would emphasize is monetary integration. We are, of course, in a world of change in the world's payment systems, just as we are in a world of change in data, in energy systems, in land use, and in the other areas that I've mentioned. The role of the dollar will diminish considerably over the next 10 to 20 years. The internationalization of the renminbi will be a marked change. The Asian financial crisis nearly 30 years ago now already told us that Asia cannot rely alone on Washington-based institutions, but the Chiang Mai Initiative and other initiatives for assuring that there's a lender of last resort that is effective in the Asia region remains extremely important. And so I would say that on the monetary side, new payments systems, integration with China's interbank payment system, SIPS, uh, and development of deeper markets for sovereign debt. Uh, I think Hong Kong will play a growing role in this regard. Of course, Singapore, Tokyo, other financial centers in the region are key. But I would say that monetary integration within East Asia will be a theme, and it means a diminished role for the dollar as the settlements currency. It means a diminished role for the Fed as the quasi-international lender of last resort, a rising role for the People's Bank of China, but cooperation for the central banks of Korea, Japan, China, Australia, and other central banks. So this is a sixth theme that I would mention. A seventh theme for regional cooperation is reducing the cost of capital throughout the region for sovereign borrowers. All of One of the aims of ADB and of strategy in the region should be to ensure that all sovereign borrowers within the ADB membership are investment grade. And this requires systematic policy making, debt management policies, appropriate credit ratings, lender of last resort facilities for the region, scaling up uh, regional finance. Of course, ADB's own capital base should be considerably expanded. And we should think whether other institutions, new facilities for ASEAN infrastructure, or even an ASEAN development bank as a sub-regional bank is something that might be useful. But the key is to reduce the cost of capital. Asia is the world's pool of saving. It should be the world's region of low cost capital as a result of that. Interest rates in Asia should be lower than those in the United States and Europe by virtue of the high savings pool. And that requires a set of policies to ensure that all of the sovereign borrowers, and therefore all of the major borrowers in the region, have access to capital at low cost. I have three remaining quick geopolitical points that I would emphasize, but they're economic as well. The eighth is that I hope that India joins RCEP. India, of course, is already the world's third largest economy by PPP. It's a very dynamic and growing economy. It would benefit enormously by integrating with the regional comprehensive economic partnership. It came close to being the 16th member of RCEP when it was founded, decided not to, but I think that it is time to reconsider that. So I would hope that India would join RCEP. This would make RCEP, of course, the most important free trade area in the world economy, the most dynamic, and I think it would be of a huge benefit for everybody. A ninth point that I wanted to mention, again, a little bit geopolitical, is the Central Asian countries, which will be in the 21st century as we move forward, renewed Silk Road pathways of trade between Europe and Asia and East Asia. And the Central Asian economies are doing a very good job of increasing integration and increasing strategizing. And I think that this means that the East Asian cooperation with Europe is especially important to recreate an overland, effective, integrated Silk Road for the balance of the 21st century. And this would be of tremendous importance for the Central Asian countries and for the countries of the South Caucasus. This transport corridor, east to west, should bridge Europe and East Asia. It should not be a new geopolitical game of who controls which corridor. So I think that Central Asia deserves focus in this regard. And the 10th and final point that I wanted to make is a plea for cooperation of the three Northeast Asian powerhouses, China, Japan, and Korea. I would say that at any moment, but I would say it especially because of the events of the last couple of weeks, which are very, very sad. There is no intrinsic reason for China and Japan to be enemies, to be an escalating tit for tat battle against each other, or to view each other as threats. It's really important for the world that China and Japan and Korea cooperate. It is, as I said, these three are the three most innovative parts of the world economy. Okay, Silicon Valley shows up as one place out of the top five, but the top five are two in China, the Tokyo-Yokohama corridor, and Seoul. And if Northeast Asia cooperatively got together, reduced the tensions, ended the Cold War, which has no legitimate basis in my view, this would be the innovation powerhouse for the whole world economy. It would be of tremendous benefit for China, Japan, and Korea, but it would spill over in benefits for Southeast Asia, for all of Asia, and for all of the world, in fact. So my 10th point is renewed, uh, actually close and warm cooperation of China, Japan, and Korea. It's absolutely possible. There is no intrinsic reason for fear. No one's invading each other. You don't need a military buildup in Northeast Asia. You need cooperation to achieve sustainable development. So these are the points, Chair, that I wanted to mention, and back over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Sachs. Very interesting points. Let me just summarize a bit, not for the sake of summarizing for the audience, but it's mostly for myself. So basically, the three areas of cooperation that you are highlighting to begin with is about green transformation, use of land and food security, and then cooperation in higher education, which basically will lead into regional, creating better regional innovation ecosystem, and hence requiring some sort of collaboration and cooperation in terms of regulating artificial intelligence and stuff. You also highlighted about the need for monetary integration, which could also benefit could also have a benefit in reducing the cost of capital throughout the region as a result. And then your last 3 points are geopolitical in nature, but those 3 points are the 3 points that is needed to foster better cooperation and integration in the region in order to help the region to move forward with its development to become more prosperous nations and areas in the global world. I guess that's a very interesting point. Now let me open up questions from the floor or discussion. For those who are in the panel here, please raise your hand. There is one from Dil Rahut. Please, Dil.
Good afternoon, Professor Sachs. We are very delighted to have you and always listen to your presentations. You bring in so many new things, which is actually very important for a region like ours. My question is that I come from a very small country. I think I come from Bhutan. And when it
Great.
comes to regional integrations, Professor Sachs, how can country like ours, Bhutan, Nepal, benefit from integrating into bigger regions? Because when you are negotiating with bigger players, I felt we get sometimes tend to get marginalized. So I really want to hear from you your thoughts and how we can strategize.
Thank you, Dil. I'm hoping to be in Bhutan early in January, so I hope I can brainstorm on that as well. We were with the PM in New York at the General Assembly, and I'm hoping to come to Thimphu and some of my favorite places in January. You know, Bhutan is a remarkable place. It's helped shape the world thinking about sustainable development and happiness. So I want to pay tribute to Bhutan for that, but also to say Bhutan, of course, is so much interconnected geopolitically in what happens between India and China. And it would be wonderful for Bhutan and for the world if India and China are cooperating with each other. Unfortunately, the India-China cooperation was made complicated by Mr. McMahon, who was a middle or low-level official in the British military in 1914 when he drew lines on a map of places he had never been to demarcate what was claimed to be the British Empire, especially the Indian crown jewel of the British Empire. Well, this has led to border disputes and war, actually, since 1949. And it needs to be resolved. And I was very happy at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization when Prime Minister Modi and President Xi had a warm and cordial meeting. And there seems to be an intent for the two major powers to cool things off, actually warm up the relationship and warm up trade. Bhutan would be a huge beneficiary of this, I have to say, because Bhutan right now is very much dependent on India and only India, but it really should look both directions and would benefit by India-China cooperation, which I really hope can be achieved. Bhutan also, of course, is a key for the whole green energy transformation because Bhutan is the greenest of green economies in the world. It runs on hydropower and it stores enormous amounts of carbon in the Himalayan forest, which it protects very, very nobly and very ably. But that hydropower is of tremendous importance, and I want to make sure that Bhutan gets good results from the hydropower, good prices, good contracting, and can export the hydropower also in both directions, not only to India as a captive market, but also to China and in other directions. So I would say that Bhutan's role both in trade, in tourism, in energy systems, is very key, but also is very much part of the China-India relations, which should be improved.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sachs. Let me open for another round of questions. I don't see any hands right now, but there is a question from the audience, Professor Sachs. This is a question coming from Rias Reed. He basically asked you to elaborate a bit more on the point about monetary integration away from the dollar towards the renminbi. How would you envision this transition to take shape in a practical and stable way that supports sustainable growth for the region rather than financial disruption? And then
I think, yes.
Before you go on, Professor Sachs, Jamel, your question. You have a question? Can we take two questions?
Of course.
At the same time, Professor. Yeah, please, Jamel.
Yes. Thank you so much, Professor Sachs, for this very interesting presentation. I have a question about the role of regional trade agreements in Asia. If we compare the path of development of trade and economic integration in Europe, which has been driven by all of these agreements, especially about agricultural policy, what is striking is that somehow Asia managed remarkably to have a silent integration without relying on regional trade agreement. So how do you see this transition between a silent integration, de facto integration without a trade agreement, and a transition to a new way of integrating economies, maybe deeper integration with this agreement? And the second part of my intervention is about Daniel Roderick is talking about a shallow globalization, which is more inside within the continents rather than intercontinental trade. How do you see, and in the sense, ASEP goes back into that direction where the intra-Asian trade will be more intense in the future? So how do you see this transition from a de facto integration to a formal integration to make all of these dimensions together. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Great.
gentlemen. Please, Professor Sachs.
Great. Thank you very much. First, on the monetary integration, there are several dimensions to the monetary and payments issues, but unfortunately, a significant part has been shaped by the U.S. misuse of the dollar. The U.S. came to use the dollar as a weapon both to literally confiscate reserves of several countries now, with which the U.S. has a geopolitical conflict, but also to use the dollar as the mechanism for enforcing unilateral sanctions, with threats to banks that they will be cut off from the SWIFT system if they don't comply with these extraterritorial or secondary sanctions. And this has pushed the BRICS in particular to accelerate the transformation to non-dollar settlements. I think that this is an inevitable course. But there's another reason I should mention is that to the extent that countries use the dollar for settlements, they depend on the Fed as the lender of last resort. The IMF is not a lender of last resort, unfortunately. It does provide some relief, but typically not with the speed, agility, and scale that an international lender of last resort does. So the Fed is, in effect, the real lender of last resort. And the Fed gives swap lines to countries that are friendly with the Fed. In 2008, for example, after the Wall Street financial crisis broke out in September, Korea was experiencing acute panic, and the Fed stepped in with a large swap line and stopped the panic. But places where the Fed did not step in experienced a terrible crisis. And so countries do not want to rely on the Fed or depend on the U.S. for settlements and reserve assets. And I think that this is to the American detriment, but it's the result of the fact that the U.S. has misused its exorbitant privilege, as it's called. And for this reason, countries are looking to non-dollar payments. And the renminbi will be the most important of these because China is the major trading partner of probably 150 countries in the world, and that will continue. And the renminbi is in the course of internationalizing. It's a step-by-step process with China. They do it very methodically, but I think that we're going to have a lot more payments, and SIPs, the new Chinese interbank payment system, will play a very important role in that. And that will also mean that the PBOC will have to play an international role of a different sort because operationalizing an international lender of last resort mechanism for Asia will be important. This has been on the table since 1997. And there is progress, but I think there will have to be an expansion of lender of last resort planning and programming, which will all be good. When it comes to the state of globalization, first of all, I'm basically of the view that globalization will continue and will intensify, and that we're not at the end of globalization, but we are in a phase of American protectionism. This is different. But America's not the world. It thinks it's the world, but it's not the world. America is about 13% of trade, 14% of world output, measured at PPP. It's important, but it is not dominant. And in this sense, I don't think that American protectionism will determine the shape of globalization more generally. I'm in Africa now for the G20. Africa is integrating itself with the Continental Free Trade Agreement, but Africa-Asia trade will definitely expand. Africa, Asia investment will definitely expand. So we're far from the end of globalization by any means. That's an American meme in the American media, but not a global phenomenon in my view. And I think the integration will be deeper integration because of the fact that what we're after is energy transformation, land use transformation, monetary and payment systems resilience. And this goes beyond trade itself. It goes to the core of service delivery. It goes to the core of the new digital economy because AI is going to be shared systems, and therefore there will have to be shared regulation. So I think it's inevitable that many interesting issues will be on the table for regional cooperation because you can't address the 21st century challenges at a national level alone.
Thank you very much, Professor Sachs. I believe there are still a lot of questions coming on to you, but unfortunately, our time is up. So before we end the session, could I ask everybody